Hi everyone, welcome back to the Old Emo Dave channel, and we're here today with some Paper Pioneer Live. I'm here with Scott, and we're going to go through a recent matchup of Absand Roots versus me. Yes, me, Old Emo Dave, playing Absand Amalia here on the channel. Hey Scott, welcome for another game. What are your thoughts?
So I know that Harry's been playing this Roots deck a couple of times locally, so we're all starting to get a little familiar with it. It's basically based around the card of Insidious Roots, triggering that multiple times, sometimes demonstrating loops, doing it over and over and over again in one turn, building up an insurmountable board of insects, I believe it is, that it makes. And Amalia, it's the perennial combo deck in the most recent BNR. Apparently the only Pioneer deck that Wizards have said they're keeping an eye on, which is a bit strange to me personally when people keep complaining about Phoenix and vampires on...
Yeah, Treasure Cruise isn't a problem, right? Of course, Treasure Cruise is no problems. Look the other way and do not think about it.
As we proved in the last video we did on the channel, no, Treasure Cruise is absolutely fine.
Absolutely. You know, Amalia, as we all know, I'm a lover. Roots is, at this particular point in the metagame, an up-and-comer, has been doing work in local RCQs, has been doing work on online metagames. And at this point, this is one of my favorite points in local LGS play, when someone comes with a new deck that no one's played. For context for everyone at home, at this particular point, Harry never played this deck against anyone. I was the very first person to play him. And once I do this, and he goes turn one and fires a Stitcher Supplier, I literally go, what the fuck? It's Insidious Roots. And there we go. We're away to the races.
Yeah, so Scrap Heap Scrounger and Agatha's Soul Cauldron milled there. Soul Cauldron, ideally, like to be in the hand, not in the graveyard. There's 3 Insidious Roots in hand, so I can't imagine what you're thinking looking at that with the Deep Cabin Bat.
It's you take the Stitcher Supplier because it's a pointless move otherwise.
You take the Stitcher Supplier, hope they can't enable... well, they're they're basically going to spend the next couple of turns playing Insidious Roots over and over and over again. And they're going to trigger it for the first time by utilizing the Scrap Heap Scrounger.
Absolutely,
but
yeah.
If you don't kill the Stitcher Supply, they don't mill again. Hopefully.
Yeah, at this point, I was more a case of I just needed to build a value board and just not build and not kill the Stitcher Supplier. Killing the Stitcher Supplier was just going to give him more fodder, and I was just going to not be able to catch up because I definitely didn't have the combo anywhere near my hand. So I just needed to sort of build a board, build pressure.
Yeah, Mana Confluence also a bit of an awkward draw by the looks, especially when you're doing the fair game plan. If you're not using Prosperous Innkeeper and gaining a bunch of life incidentally as you go, another Stitcher Supplier, so you got Thoughtseize Bug there.
Absolutely, and there's a Priest of Forgotten God. So at this particular point, having played this actual deck myself online a little bit, I knew there was an Agatha's Soul Cauldron. I see the Stitcher Supplier. I'm very much aware that I need to be churning through the deck and finding my pieces. So this is where I was I needed to keep cracking maps. I needed to make more maps, and but attacking in the ground was going to be a problem. So a bit of a weird point I was at here was like, do I attack with the Sentinel and risk another 6 mil, or do I just go with the Deep Cavern Bat? I think I just go with the Deep Cavern Bat.
That's the issue you've got here, right? Is your Sentinel is your biggest threat, but it's also on the ground, so you're enabling these Stitcher Suppliers by attacking with it. So it looks like you did attack with the Sentinel, prioritizing a bit of speed.
Yeah, and I think, like, thinking about it, like, I missed on the initial map, so I knew that I just wanted to dig, and that was a good draw for me to get the... Oh, my bad. I was too excited to get that Extraction Specialist into hand. It is an Extraction Specialist, even though it's currently being glared to hell on the top of my deck. But I was thinking more of a case of the great thing with the maps is that if I can map away and I can maybe map an Amalia off the top and put it in the graveyard, I can go get it back and get it onto the field. But this is going to get scary very quickly with now in 3 Insidious Roots. There's a lot of interaction about to happen.
Yeah, so Rubber Belt Maverick, also another setup card, basically Stitcher Supplier Light. I imagine a lot of the time the Surveil 2 on that is Mill 2 for Harry here.
Yeah, exactly. And I just setting up the top of your deck, right? Like setting up the top deck of dreams.
Yeah, that's the beauty of Surveil, right? It does double duty in that way. If you see a spell on top that you want to keep, you can keep it, but it's also got that velocity to keep putting cards in your graveyard.
Yeah, no blocks here from Harry. And here's where the Extraction Specialist is useful, because it's a possible Innkeeper on top. So essentially by milling this and then playing Extraction Specialist, I'm effectively like +1 because I actually get a treasure back.
Yeah, you've functionally drawn a card, right? It's the same thing as when you play a Surveil land on turn 6 when you don't need another land and you mill the land that's on top of your library. It feels like you've drawn a card.
So like I'm very happy with the board state. Just the lack of combo is just a drawback here. When I'm gonna get Priest of Forgotten Gods comboed like within about 2 or 3 turns.
Seems like it might be happening now. So I believe Priest of Forgotten Gods is sacrifice 2 creatures. I could be wrong. It could be sacrifice 2 other creatures.
It's 2 other creatures.
Okay, so even just by exiling it, it's triggering those 3 Insidious Roots, building the fodder to sacrifice 2 the priest ability that is probably going on.
Would you be the Stitcher Supplier? No, actually on the Rubble Belt, because then you get to then sack a Stitcher Supplier, right? So
yeah, so I think Harry is not content with 3 Insidious Roots going crazy and building an overwhelming board. He's always a bit of a showman with this deck, from what we've seen, and wants to get use of the insect tokens that he's procured.
As we can see, these are insect tokens instead of plants. So if you do want to send any plant tokens, Kira Firestone Games, or via me here, Old Emo Dave, just drop us a DM and put a comment on the video. We'll tell you where to send them, and we will donate them to Harry directly, so we can properly represent his board state. Untapping here. To my memory, I think I was just thinking again, I need to dig through my deck. Obviously, 4 mana, I have an out to Amalia, Wildgrowth Walker from somewhere, like a Coco, something like that. But it isn't a rosy picture knowing that very, very next turn, I am just going to start, they're going to just start comboing me.
Yeah, so you're not facing down a huge amount of damage on the next turn itself. So the absolute fail case here is the Extraction Specialist and the Sentinel can block the 2 biggest plants.
Yeah, absolutely. And just for note at home, I should have noted at the start, as being one of the people in this game who forgot to do it. Harry didn't forget to do it because he's using dice at the top of the screen, but we forgot to use the life counters until halfway through game 2. So as it currently stands, Harry's on 10. I'm somewhere in the region of 23, 24 because I've been gaining life as we go in, but I've also been losing life. So at the current moment in time, we're not a threat. Now, what Harry's done, he's activated Priest of Forgotten Gods, but what I'm just sort of reminding him here is that he needs to use the mana that's floating, because the Priest of Forgotten Gods added 2 black mana doesn't get added until the crime trigger from the Forsaken Micah has resolved. So if he wants to do it that way, he needs to use this black mana. But he was indicating to me that he wanted to keep that mana open, I'm guessing for the green. And then instead went ahead and brought back the Scrounger. And just made just a couple more insects.
Yeah, so I believe that is 1 trigger on each roots from the Scrap Heap Scrounger, despite it exiling a creature to then return. I'm not 100% sure how that actually works. This is not the easiest deck to pass, to be honest.
No, I believe that should have been another 3. I believe that should have been another 3 because you exile 1 and then it triggers.
You exile it as the cost. The ability goes on the stack. You trigger the 3 roots. Those 3 resolve. Then the Scrap Heap Scrounger returns, triggering all 3 again.
Yeah, but at this particular point, the fodder is built, and I'm in a bit of trouble. That is just a clean Forsaken Miner from hand. thinking probably about what would be useful to be exiled under the priest here. We've got just a consideration of which way to go with the triggers and activations. The positive part about the Forsaken Miner sacrifice is it can just come straight back, and it can also create you some insects. So, like, because it dies, the trigger, and then the trigger will go on the stack from it. So,
yeah, so it's sacrificed as part of the cost of putting the ability on the stack, and then by the time the ability has targeted you as Harry's opponent, the Forsaken Miner's in the graveyard ready to see that trigger.
Yeah, exactly. So he has plenty of mana to use it. He's creating mana from the overall trigger. The other element with the trigger, with then sacking the roots or the plants, as it'd be, is you can tap them for mana first to then do it. Effectively demonstrate. I think I basically said back to him, "Are you demonstrating to me that you're going to clear my board?" And he went, "Yes," multiple times. I was like, "Okay, game 2, let's go." And yeah, that's this deck in action. An interesting addition to the metagame. As we go to sideboarders, Scott, what do you think about where that's going to be featuring as far as Pioneer is concerned? Something that could be tier 1, a niche tier 2 pick? What's your thoughts?
I think we're looking more niche tier 2, tier 2.5. It doesn't have the pace or the interaction required to keep up with Phoenix. It really, really struggles with Vein Ripper if there's any other creatures on the board. Obviously, Priest is a very good answer to it. And the deck will forever have a perennial problem with a Rest in Peace coming down on the other side of the board. It's extremely graveyard centric. It's a bit like a dredge in the good old days of Modern, where they'd win every game 1 because they were 95% in every single game 1. But as soon as you go to post board, they're 25-30% in each post board game, and they just hope to steal one of them.
Absolutely, but one real positive thing about Absent Roots, definitely a card where you could probably find, definitely a deck where you can probably find a lot of this in your bulk. And if you aren't already properly protecting your bulk, you can go to bulkbox.com and get yourself a new bulk box. Using old Emo Dave 10 at checkout, you're going to be able to find yourself some great quality bulk boxes to keep your Insidious Roots parts in. You might even keep more plant tokens to be able to hand over to Harry. But it's very true in relation to that. You know, you got Forsaken Miners, you've got Scrap Heap Scroungers. That's a bulk rare if I've ever seen one. Even Deathwhite Shamans you can pick up for a couple of quid nowadays, because they're banned in basically every format apart from Pioneer. A real good deck that can get you in relatively cheap. Yes, okay, we have got Agatha Soul Cauldron, a little pricey there, but in 2 or 3 of those, and they're going to see you right in a bunch of other decks at different times. Talking about my sideboarding plan here, yep, I brought in some Graveyard Hate for sure. A licensor, there is an unlicensed so I'm just running the board, just the one, just a Phoenix, and it's also, and I really forget what the human card is. I literally have it by me, Denaria, the white and the black one that you can, when as it ETBs, it exiles all graveyards.
It's the one from Aftermath, which I tried to pretend didn't exist, I think, like a lot of other people. The one thing I did want to mention as well, bringing in unlicensed test, obviously you need the Graveyard Hate, because if you don't interact, then you're going to really struggle. But unlicensed Hearst triggers the Insidious route. So if Harry has one of these slower draws where he plays a naked Roots on 2 and then isn't explosive out of the gate, is more just playing not fairly, because it's not at its floor fair Magic, but the Hearst can be awkward as hate later on, because you might be triggering multiple Insidious Roots by using it.
No, for sure. Another card that is bringing in this matchup, which I do remember bringing in, is Skyclave Apparition. A piece of hate bearing that can get rid of the roots through targeting, so you can get rid of Agatha Soul Cauldron as well. Removal pieces in the general Amalia sideboard are actually a little bit awkward in this matchup, because Thought Seizers and Fatal Pushes just give them graveyard fodder. So couldn't bring those in like I would against other creature-centric decks. But a great start here, though, the Lunar Veteran into Innkeeper is basically the dream Amalia start, because you are staring down the potential of hit your land, drop, do your combo. And Harry doesn't have much disruption for my game plan in this deck. There is a couple of fatal pushes, a couple of thought seizes, but I don't believe it's either always like a set of 4 or both. It's usually either one plan or the other. So he's gone, he had a great setup turn, though, to be fair, Stitcher Supplier, Rubble Belt, but and now got the Mortuary as well.
Yeah, that's the flaw with this. That's the flaw with this type of deck, right? Is you're doing something inherently extremely powerful, so triggering multiple Insidious Roots multiple times per turn, building up an insurmountable board over in a much quicker way than you otherwise would be able to. But to do that, you can't have your deck packed with interaction like, for example, Phoenix and Vampires do, where the interaction is part of their game plan. It's more, you have your game plan, and then separately to that, you have a bit of removal and a bit of interaction to support your game plan. Whereas that's why we see with these really powerful decks, such as Amalia gets to play Deep Cavern Bat almost for free, and Phoenix gets to play all the removal in the world, and Vampires gets to play removal as well, and that's tied up in Blood Tithe Harvester, which is both a synergy piece and a removal spell. That's the issue with the decks like Abzan Roots. That's why I don't believe it will be tier 1, is not just its softness to the card Rest in Peace, but it can be a little disjointed at times if you draw the wrong amount of either half of your deck.
Yeah, and you see it play out here. Talking through the Amalia turn, Quarter Caller's been left on top. The big reason why I actually cracked my treasure and played out the Deep Cavern Bat was to play some disruption to the hand, and have more things ready for Quarter Calling, just in case there's removal pieces in play. I saw the hand had no removal pieces, so I just took what I thought was the recurring threat with the Cauldron. They didn't have 3 mana either, or they didn't actually, there was nothing actually was going to be an immediate threat with the Priest of Forgotten Gods. So I just needed to fade a Miracle on Harry's side, and then I was just going to be able to pull off the combo. I think he was like trying to set up maybe like a favorable turn here, but the reality is my Amalia is already on the field. So my Amalia is going to trigger. It's going to trigger all the way to what I believe in this case is going to be 22-23, and we're gonna go. Yeah, well, he's already scooping up. We're gonna go to game 3. That's the combo doing its thing, and that's why you've got to be able to have 2-way interaction in the Pioneer metagame as it currently stands.
Yeah, that's why the Pioneer metagame can at times feel a little bit throttled by decks like, for example, Phoenix and Vampires and Amalia itself. Amalia's asking a very specific question of every deck in the metagame, and Phoenix and Vampires can oftentimes answer those questions, but often homebrews, off-meta decks struggle to answer every single one of those questions. It's a case of, well, you need to be able to interact with the Amalia combo itself, and then you also need to be prepared for a pretty robust backup plan of, I'm playing Lunark Veteran into Deep Cavern Bat into Sentinel of the Nameless City and beating down, and then you need to deal with that while also being ready for the potential for, oh, I drew Amalia and Wildgrowth Walker, you are just dead.
So we are on ban day, and we have seen no changes. Do you think we're overdue with Wildgrowth Walker staying in the meta, or it's still fine to keep? Any thoughts on that side of things? Are you happy to keep Amalia here to keep other decks in check, or would Amalia just being banned bring in other decks that can keep the other decks in check?
I think the issue, they've sort of banned themselves into a little bit of a corner with the Pioneer metagame, I feel like, where it's balanced, but it's only very finely balanced at the very top. And as soon as you take one of those out, you would then need to turn around and ban 5 or 6 other cards immediately, you wouldn't just be able to ban, say, Wild Growth Walker or Amalia, because then you're taking a predator out of the metagame for vampires. Whereas if you just banned Sorin or Vein Ripper, you're then opening the door for Phoenix potentially. You ban Treasure Cruise, then what's stopping vampires just becoming 40% of the meta instead of the 20-odd% that it is currently?
I know, I understand totally, and the way they've addressed these ban windows, and they do seem to be playing them sort of around the seasons. I would like to see in this August window coming up, we'll be post RCQ's seasons, although we won't have had our regionals yet, but there'll be plenty of time for regionals. I'd love to see a real shake-up, maybe 3 or 4 things banned, 3 or 4 things come off the ban list, and Pioneer have like a fresh, almost like winter to play with, so that people can brew things up and get going. Whilst in this game 3 straight away, we see Knight of the Dust Shadow come out, and an absolutely different game plan needed from the outset from the Amalia side of things.
Yeah, so this is, you cannot gain life anymore, so it stops the combo. As we've just seen, you played Lunark Veteran into Amalia. Amalia did not get that Explore trigger because you didn't gain any life. So these are the kind of cards that people are having to dig out of their boxes and find, and things that they can try and play that are purely there for Amalia. The Knight of Dust Shadow, it might have applications in other places. There might be other decks that it's good against, but realistically, it's taking up space in that sideboard purely for Amalia.
Yeah, there's no other real life game threat decks in any current meta, and it does just change the way that Amalia needs to play. Amalia needs to go wide. It needs to get out to be able to remove this threat. We talked about Skyclave Apparition earlier. Pretty much the only like hard removal piece, especially when you're thinking, I don't want to play Fatal Push because it's going to fodder a graveyard. So setting that up is the key play here, and big reason for attacking in with Amalia there. Little screws at the hand. I had returned to the ranks. Amalia has no agency being on the board right now, but if in some like 2-turn combo we can trick out removing the Dust Shadow and then return to the ranks in back because return to the ranks has Convoke, that was my thought piece about the attack with Amalia, just to sort of force the issue, try and get a mistake out of Harry.
Yeah, Harry's a wily Magic player, much like yourself, much like a lot of us are locally. As I've said many times, we have a very, very high standard locally until I'm on camera, or you are, Dave. So, which is why we very often commentate on other people's matches.
Yeah, I'm one of the. Although we have recently picked up a new Amalia player, I was one of the few players of Amalia, so therefore I was needed to put a bit of balance to our Rakdos Phoenix mirrors. As we go and get Priest of Forgotten Gods, and we have the instant activation from Tyvar being around. To my memory, I was not in a happy place when this actually hit the field, and I was thinking about I need to set up a 2-turn win here, in some shape or form. I definitely have called a call in at this point. I definitely have returned to the ranks, but I couldn't remember what the other cards were. Oh, a might. So yeah, that was for removal of the roots.
Yeah, so we might be in the sort of situation where you're still short the Wild Growth Walker, which is what you'd ideally like to use the Chord of Calling for, but obviously the Chord can find a Skyclave Apparition to deal with the Knight. So it's a really tricky situation to be in from your side. I understand why you are having a deep thought about what you want to do here, because especially when there's a Tyvar ticking up on the other side of the board, and there's a Priest of the Forgotten Gods. If Harry starts going off even slightly here, you're going to find your board completely wiped, and then the Chord of Calling is worth next to nothing. So that is a Chord of Calling for 2, not convoking. So we might see you getting the Wild Growth Walk here if it's for 2.
So what I actually do here was actually do it for 3. Yeah. We actually do it for 3, and I the whole time wanted to do it for this. I think, so we called a call of a Skycrave apparition. Main reason to target the Dust Shadow. Thinking I'm gonna be able to, I'm gonna be able to get back Amalia with a return to the ranks, and then I was just gonna really just need to like draw into Wildgrowth Walker. Harry in response like creating an activation, which gives me a thought about what to do. The obvious target here is Lunar Veteran, because then I'll be able to either bring that back with return to the ranks, or just disturb it anyway. Which in many situations to have like that little 1/1 flyer is like really useful.
You've also still got the life gain enabler, right? Because you've still got the Prosperous Innkeeper sitting there. So if you were in the situation where you peeled the Wild Growth Walker, or you peeled, I don't know if another Chord would give it to you in one turn without a land drop, but you have now set up the situation where if you draw the right card, you might be able to win the game. And even if we were to see something like a Thoughtseize out of Harry, you can't Thoughtseize at the top of the deck.
Yeah, and at this point, I realized there's 2 turns. Is if Tyvar ticks up enough, then they're gonna get back the Knight of Dust Shadow anyway. So this activation into the Rebel Belt, again, it's okay for now. But I really was hoping to like make some moves on the next play. But there is a Stitcher Supplier, which really hurts. Really hurts.
The nifty little interaction there between Insidious Roots and Tyvar, making the token off of the Insidious Roots and then immediately being able to tap it for mana using Insidious Roots' ability of granting the tokens the ability to tap for mana. Tyvar plussing to untap it again, so it looked like Harry was out of mana, could do absolutely nothing, actually had access to 2 mana and upwards of 3, and then for more triggers you could get even more.
Yeah, and clearly out of options. I return to the ranks for the whole lot, for the whole shebang.
So mana being floated by the looks off the plant, and the priest sacking, getting back Forsaken Miner, making a plant. You sacrifice the Skyclave apparition. It's not looking great for our hero. Not gonna lie.
No. Well, here was 2 triggers. Some unfortunate timing. That Coco this turn would have been possibly even game winning, like, because I would have been able to do a real big return to the ranks. But we are definitely going to be 1 turn too late, I think. Here, there is a reflection token in my sideboard there, Dave. Go get it and put it on the right side of this table, please, to reflect the
there would be no reflection token as the
illusion.
Well, no, it's the target of the Skyclave apparition never got exiled by it, right? So
of course. Well, see, smart. I smarter than I thought I was.
Past Dave was. Current Dave up for debate.
Current Dave wasn't ready for the skill of past Dave. At this point, Harry is going to go through some motions. The obvious and correct target for the Tyvar is to tick down mill 3 and to bring back a Knight of Dust Shadow. There is now a second Knight of Dust Shadow in the bin as well, and there is priest targets for days. You really could do with Agatha Soul Cauldron, which would absolutely shut off this whole game.
Yeah, Harry also has access to roughly 1 billion mana.
Yeah,
making the tokens, then untapping them with Tyvar playing, getting things back, putting counters on stuff using the Rubble Belt Mavericks is starting to look like the door is closing on you.
Yeah, and Harry also plays in this deck, after talking to him after the match. He also plays Karvak, or Karvak the Punisher, the 3 mana card from OTJ, where when you commit a crime, you can play a card from a graveyard.
It's specifically a black card, so it's whenever you commit a crime, exile up to 1 black card from your graveyard and copy it. You may cast the copy. If you do, you lose 2 life. So it's exiling black cards from the graveyard, which triggers roots, and then you're casting the card anyway.
Yeah, and worst. So, as in a worst case scenario, escape valve for milling over your roots and needing to get it back on board. But as we do go through it, I'd love to see the proper showing of the board state, the triggers, and the Forsaken Miners all coming back in time. I'm definitely sitting on the other side of this going, is this the game that got away? Absolutely is. Doing the worst thing that you can do. Look at the top of my deck. It wasn't there. Never peak. Never lucky. GG though. Great to see, like, I've seen new metagame decks. Amalia is beatable, but it's also very good. We'll do have to admit that one.
Well, it's beatable when you're playing it.
Hey, watch that.
Fine. I'm also bad at Pioneer. It's fine.
But Scott, thanks for being with us once again. If you're still here, please don't forget to like and subscribe. We are closing in on 500 subs. It's not far away. Once we're there, we're going to be able to do some great things for Magic communities across South Wales and the West. Just enjoy it. Just be here. Tell us about your favourite Pioneer decks and why the modern season coming is going to enlighten all of your days. We'll see you on the next one. Scott, any final thoughts?
Go buy a bulk box.
10% off Old Emo Dave checkout. Old Emo Dave 10. 20 doesn't work. See you later.